Okay, hello and welcome again to part 2 of the IELTS reading practice lesson today. If you were here with me yesterday, I'm so sorry for not having been there during the live streaming session for the simple fact that I forgot to stream my video. So if you've missed yesterday's lesson, you can always go to my YouTube channel and look at the first part, or go through the first part of the lesson before we continue with today's. Okay, so let's get started with what we're going to be covering today. If you remember, in the last lesson we started looking at yes or no type questions, and I think we stopped at statement C, or number 3. Okay, we tried to locate evidence of the statement here. Alternative practitioners always acknowledge the importance of the placebo effect. So if you've missed that part of the lesson where we've tried to find evidence that supports the statement or contradicts the statement, in this case evidence that contradicts the statement, you can go through the last lesson video. Okay, so let's move forward to statement number 4, which is some surgical operations are now carried out by alternative practitioners. Okay, now if you remember what I said yesterday about watching out for qualifiers, words like some surgical operations and another keyword that you might want to pay attention to is the word now, not in the past but now. So let's see if you can find any mention of the statement here. Some surgical operations are now carried out by alternative practitioners. Okay, so we've got if you remember, I think we've divided this text into 3 sections, so let me just remind you what the sections are again. In the first section talks about how to become a success in alternative medicine. So the section begins here and ends at line 22. And the second section about the placebo effect, what it is and how it works, the text begins talking about it from here. Placebos are treatments that have no effect on the body. And the last section of the passage is integrating alternative and conventional medicine. So that would begin here. The question is whether alternative medicine could be integrated into conventional medicine. So if you look again at the statement, some surgical operations are now carried out by alternative practitioners. Now, where do you think that would go? Is it the first section of the passage, second section of the passage, or the last section? Where do you think you'd be able to find this information? Quite likely you might be looking at the section that covers this one here, integrating alternative medicine into conventional medicine. Because if you remember last lesson we talked about I think charlatanism, if I'm not wrong. Let's go back to that part of the text. Oh yeah, second section we talked about charlatanism and placebo treatments, placebo effects. So let's see if there's any mention about surgical operations here. I'll give you a few seconds to take a look at that part of the text. Okay, anything about surgical operations? Okay, what about this part of the text? Okay, one clue is to actually take a look at the first sentence of every passage, sorry, every paragraph, because that's where usually the main ideas are located. And here you can see, though scientists don't know exactly how placebos work, blah blah blah, so no mention about surgical procedures. What about this one here? It matters too how the amount is delivered. Anything about surgical procedures? No, not that we can see from here. Okay, so let's scan through very quickly on at the first line of every paragraph here. Nothing about surgical procedures. Okay, here's something about surgery. But does it mention anything about, let's go back to the statement, surgical operations carried out by alternative practitioners? Okay, here it talks about how a professor of surgery with an expensive suit and an international reputation is still a source of placebo power, but nothing about alternative practitioners performing surgical operations. So, obviously, you can't find anything about it there, so it must be not given. Okay? So we've come to the conclusion that this part, that this statement is not given, because there is no mention by the writer of whether alternative practitioners are involved in surgical operations. We see the key word there, surgery. Let's go back to that key word. Surgery, but if you remember what I mentioned to you yesterday about being careful with about matching keywords from the statement and the keywords to the text, that can be quite a dangerous thing to do, because matching keywords between the statement and the text could mislead you into thinking that the evidence is there and therefore it must be either true or false or yes or no. So this is one example of where we have a matching keyword, however it has no mention of alternative practitioners doing surgical operations. Okay, so number 4 is obviously not given. Now let's move on very quickly to statement 5, which is, we know that emotions sometimes have direct physical effects on the body. Okay, so we're looking out for keywords like emotions, and then we have the qualifier here, sometimes. Okay, not always, not mainly, but sometimes have direct physical effects on the body. So these are the things that you need to look out for. Now, where do you think you can find that? Let's go back to the text. Okay, something about emotions. Can you find anything about it there? I'll give you a few seconds to look through this part of the text and see if you can locate anything there. Okay, have you found anything at all that matches it? Okay, if you have located the word anger, that's a form of emotion. Okay, and if you have also located the word sadness, that is also another form of emotion. So, let's go back to the statement. We've got some matching keywords, but do they support the statement? Emotions sometimes have direct physical effects on the body. Okay, let's take a look at the words. At one level, it should come as no surprise that our state of mind can influence our physiology. Anger opens the superficial blood vessels of the face. Sadness pumps the tear glands. Okay, so our state of mind can influence our physiology or our physical being. This is what anger does. It opens up the blood vessels on the face. This is what sadness does. It gives you tears. So, does it support the statement? Emotions have direct physical effects on the body. So if your answer is yes, give yourself a pat on the back, because the examples of emotions that we've looked at here given by the writer are anger and sadness, which produce reddening of the face and crying respectively. So obviously the answer here is yes, absolutely. Okay, so how have you done so far with number 1 to number 5? If you've got all the answers correct, well done. So you have given accurate answers to these statements, and hopefully when you do your own practice, you'll be able to do this in a shorter time span. Okay, so let's take a look next at question 6 to 10 that involves true, false, and not given. Okay, so again, remember what I told you yesterday about following instructions. This time you have to write true, false, or not given, because it has nothing to do with the views of the writer this time. Because if you look at yes, no, not given, it talks about the views of the writer. Okay, however, with true, false, or not given, we are dealing with factual statements or factual information. Okay, let's take a look at question or statement 6. Benedetti found evidence of a link between endorphins and the placebo effect. True, false, or not given? I'll just let you have a look again at the statement. If you want to write it down on a piece of paper, go ahead. It's always good to have a pen and paper handy to make notes. Okay, so we're going to be looking out for Benedetti. Okay, we're going to scan for where there is mention of Benedetti. And we're also going to look for information on endorphins and the placebo effect. Okay, so let's go back to the text. Is there a link between endorphins and the placebo effect? Okay, so if we look back at the text now, we see that Benedetti is mentioned here in line 42. Okay, the recent work of Fabrizio Benedetti. We've got placebo effect, and then we've got endorphins. So let's make sense of what the sentence is trying to say. That case has been strengthened by the recent work of Fabrizio Benedetti of the University of Turin, who showed that the placebo effect can be abolished by a drug, naloxone, which blocks the effects of endorphins. It blocks the effects of endorphins. Okay, and let's read on further. Okay, so if you look further, there is mention about how this experiment is done. Okay, and then he talks about the placebo here. And then more information on endorphins. Okay, now, so let's take a look at the statement. So we've got the keywords, but does it support the statement? Is there a link between, what is the statement again? Is there evidence of a link between endorphins and the placebo effect? So, if you answer yes, that is absolutely correct, because it mentions in the text here was direct proof that the pain relief from placebos is brought about, at least in part, by natural endorphins. Okay? So if you look at the sentence here, it was direct proof that when this placebo is administered, okay, that there is that the pain relief from placebos is brought about by natural endorphins. Okay, so this here would support the statement that there is a link between the pain relief that placebos bring to the with the natural endorphins. Okay. Okay, so this statement would be true, that there is a link. Okay, let's move on to question number 7, or statement number 7. Anyone who understands the placebo effect can use it to stop their own pain. Anyone who understands the placebo effect can use it to stop their own pain. True or false, or not given? Let's go back to where we found this. Okay. So this was information about the link between endorphins and the placebo effect. So naturally, the location to your answer could be from here onwards. So let's take a look at the following phrase here. Most people can't achieve. No one knows why most people can't achieve placebo pain relief by simply willing it. So, let's go back to the statement. If you understand the placebo effect, you can use it to stop your own pain. Is this true or false? You can see that this is a direct contradiction. The answer is false because if you look back at the statement, most people can't achieve placebo pain relief simply by willing it. So if you understand how the placebo effects work, it doesn't mean that you can stop your own pain, because most people can't do it. No, most people can't achieve this pain relief just because they understand the placebo effect. So this is a contradiction to the statement. Okay, so obviously this is false. Okay, moving on very quickly, let's look at statement 8. The biggest selling tablets in Britain and the US are red and blue. Okay, so here we're looking for information on Britain and the United States. Any information about color, red and blue, or tablets? Let's look out for the keywords first. Okay, so we've got something about red, blue, green, yellow, but that's not enough. You will need to you will need to make sense of those keywords that you've matched. Okay? And is there anything about Britain and the US? The biggest selling tablets in Britain and the US are red or blue. Anything about sales here? So we've got American students. Okay. There's no point going back. If you've watched the first part of this lesson, we have already covered this part of the statement, so there's no point in going back and forth. So we'll just look from here onwards, maybe this paragraph and the next one. So there's no need for you to skim and scan for any information before this or information that are far beyond this. So if we focus on this area alone, we can see red, blue and American, but no mention of Britain or anything about selling here. So if you look at it carefully, the information is simply not given. I mean, there are references to the greater effectiveness of red and blue medicines, yeah, but nothing about their sales. So obviously this information or this statement is just not given. Okay, so let's put that down as not given. Okay, statement number 9. Practitioners of conventional medicine cannot bring about the placebo effect. Okay? Practitioners of conventional medicine cannot bring about the placebo effect. Let's go back to the text. Okay, so we've already found the answer to the last statement here, so it would be a good idea to move forward from here on. So, conventional practitioners, the statement here is that practitioners of conventional medicine cannot bring about the placebo effect. So we've got we've got the word physicians, which is an example of, if you remember in the first lesson we talked about the difference between, the people who practice conventional medicine or the people who practice alternative medicine. So physician is just one example of a person who practices conventional medicine. So they cannot bring about the placebo effect. Is there any mention about that here? Okay, let's let's read this information about physicians. Okay, who is a practitioner of conventional medicine. Physicians who adopt a warm, friendly, and reassuring bedside manner are more effective than those whose consultations are formal and do not offer reassurance. So what does it tell you? It tells you that physicians can bring about relief or bring placebo effect to the patient without administering drugs or anything like that, just because they adopt a warm, friendly, reassuring bedside manner. Okay, so in this case, if you look at the sentence before it as well, it matters too how the amount is delivered. The amount of what? It refers back to the amount of placebos. Okay? So, physicians who are very kind, friendly, and reassuring are more effective than those who aren't. So, does it support the statement or not? Let's go back. So in this case, it is false. It does not agree with the statement because these examples of physicians can help to bring relief to their patients. Okay, through their gentle bedside manner. Now, let's take a look at the final statement. It would be very expensive to integrate the two kinds of medicine. So here we're talking about integration of conventional medicine and alternative medicine. So where can we find that information here? So if you remember the last lesson, we divided the passage into three, and this part. Okay, anyway, we're done with this part, so we shouldn't be looking back anymore. So this part is talking about about the integration between alternative and conventional medicine. So you should be looking at this part here. So the statement, let me repeat that for you, is it would be very expensive to integrate the two kinds of medicine. Okay, so let's take a look at the keywords here. It would be very expensive. Okay, so we've found we've located the information on integration, but is integration very expensive? Let's check. Anything here about money or costs or cheap or expensive? So here we've talked. They're talking about techniques, benefits, placebo effect, obstacles, dilemmas, treatments, validity, hybrid, astronomy, astrology, professor of surgery, costly operation. Okay, here might be something about money, but does it make sense? Okay, costly operation. Let's see if it supports the statement. A professor of surgery with a confident manner, an expensive suit, and an international reputation who sees you privately and guarantees to solve your problem with an expensive operation is still considered as a source of placebo power. But does it mean that integrating or joining conventional and alternative medicine is very, very expensive? Here it just gives you an example of how a conventional practitioner who charges you very high on your for your operation can be a source of placebo for you. But be very careful now, there is no mention of integrating conventional medicine and alternative medicine together as being expensive. Okay, so that is meant as a distractor for you. So if you think that this supports the statement, then you are misled into thinking that this has a different meaning to what it just says here, which is an example of a person who charges very much money gives you placebo, whereas the statement says integrating the two kinds of medicine is very expensive. So in this case, despite the distractor, the correct answer here would be not given. Okay, so don't be fooled into thinking that just because you have found the keyword that the statement is either true or false, because cost is not mentioned in relation to integrating alternative and conventional medicine. Okay, so you need to understand the text as well as the statement as a whole to be able to produce the answers correctly. Okay, I hope it's been clear for you so far. So let's move on to analyzing the text a little bit more closely. Okay, because it may be a difficult text for some of you candidates who are not very familiar with the topic of medicine or conventional medicine or alternative medicine. So let's analyze the text. Just basically for general understanding, away from the task time. So we're not going to be dealing with any more exam type questions. We're just going to look at the text to improve our understanding and our vocabulary. Okay, so if you look at the first question here, what has been omitted before want to at the beginning of the text and why? So let's take a look at the beginning of the text. Okay, want to devise a new form of alternative medicine? What has been omitted here? Okay, if you've guessed the words do you, you're correct, because by omitting this, what the author is trying to create is a more informal or conversational tone. So instead of saying, do you want to devise a new form of alternative medicine, he just removes those two words altogether and just starts with want to do this. Okay, so it has a sort of a more relaxed tone, a more conversational, informal tone to the writing. Okay, so this is the style of the text. Let's take a look at the second question here. What kinds of things are energy fields, energy flows, energy blocks, meridians, forces, auras, rhythms? Okay, let's try to locate these words here. Energy fields, energy flows, blah, blah, blah. Where can we find that? Yeah, you can find that there. In line number 9. Okay, so my question is, what kinds of things are these? Okay, if you're unsure, all these phrases are examples of forces which have not been identified by a scientific study. Okay, they have not been identified by scientific study. So my next question is it necessary for you to understand their precise meanings to understand the whole text? If your answer is no, you're correct, because knowing their exact meaning is not necessary for you to understand the text. Instead, the author mentions them precisely because their meaning is vague, and it creates a sort of a mystical aura for these therapies. Okay, so we've got this here with a hint of mysticism. Energy fields, energy flows, blah, blah, blah. So it's not necessary for you to understand exactly what these words mean. Okay, to understand the overall passage. Okay, to understand the overall text. The writer simply mentions them to add a sort of mystery to support his point about mysticism in alternative medicine. Okay, let's take a look at another part of the text, which is this question here. Which common conjunction could replace the word yet on line 22? Let's look back at line 22. Where can we see that? Okay. Yet. What's another word for yet here in this sentence that could be replaced? That could replace the word yet. Placebos are treatments that have no direct effect on the body, but could still work because the patient has faith in their power to heal. So if your answer is but, it's absolutely right. So but could replace the word yet in this case. So it has the idea of contradiction. Okay? Now, if you remember, in the last lesson we talked about charlatanism. And I'm quite sure that many of you has just come across this word for the first time. Okay, find a synonym for quackery in the same sentence. What do they imply? So same sentence, lines 26 to 30. Another word for quackery would be charlatanism. Okay, what is quackery and what is charlatanism anyway? If you remember in the last lesson, or yesterday's lesson, I kind of briefly defined it for you. It basically means the practice of people who can claim that they know medicine. So, you know, if you are a quack doctor, it has nothing to do with the sounds of a duck or being a duck or anything like that, but it has the same negative connotation, the same sort of implied meaning, negative implied meaning about people who claim to know medicine but yet have no qualifications or no formal experience in medicine. Okay, so I think it would be a good idea, if you're still unsure of the meaning, it might be a good idea for you to look up the dictionary or maybe a translator to see if there is a word that have a direct translation. So charlatanism comes from the word charlatan, which is a person who pretends to have skills or knowledge that they don't have, especially in medicine. Okay, so like I mentioned before, some people consider it as fake knowledge about this particular field. So quackery has the same meaning as charlatanism. It's synonymous. Okay? Hopefully that helps you understand that a little bit better. So charlatanism, I think, is a key word for you to try to actually know in order for you to answer one of the statements that we've looked at correctly. Okay. Yeah, so just to let you know, quackery comes from the word quack. Like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with the sounds of a duck. It's basically a person who dishonestly pretends to have medical skills or knowledge. And it's a disapproving term or a negative term. Okay, let's see what else we can find out about this text. Where would you normally find a trigger? And what does it mean as a verb in line 52? Let's take a look at line 52. Trigger. How relief triggers endorphin release. Okay, so where would you normally find a trigger? If you say that you would find a trigger on a gun, you're right. Yes, you would find a trigger on a gun. And as a verb here, it means to cause or to start. Alright, to cause endorphin release or to start endorphin release. Okay, let's take a look at some more words. What is the usual meaning of recipe? And which other word in that sentence has the same association? So let's take a look at line 69 for the word recipe, which we can find here. Many of the ingredients of that opening recipe. Okay. Now the usual meaning of recipe, as many of you would know, is a list of instructions for cooking. Okay, so which other word in that sentence has the same associations? Ingredients. Okay, so if you've spotted ingredients, very good. Alright, so ingredients has the same association. Okay, my last question about the text would be this one here. Let's get rid of this. What part of speech is face or faces on line 84, and which nouns collocate with it in each case? Okay, line 84, face or faces. Where can we find that? Over here. Doctors would face serious ethical dilemmas in recommending what they know to be placebo treatments to their patients. So what does it mean here, face? Basically, it's a verb, face or faces, in this context. And what collocates with face? You can face a problem, you can face a dilemma, and so on. So here we've got the collocation here. Face serious dilemmas in recommending what they know. Okay? Now, understanding collocations is useful for you to understand the meanings of certain expressions, not just in IELTS reading, but also in IELTS writing, task 1 and 2. So what we're going to do now is take a look at collocations here. I've got a list of words on the left and another list of words on the right, but what I would like you to do is see if you can collocate the words on the left to their partners on the right. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to think about this. So I'm just going to start my timer, and after 2 minutes we'll check your answer. Okay. Okay, I hope I've given you enough time to figure this out. So let's start with placebo. Okay, so if you have identified the matching word with effect, then you are absolutely right. Okay, so we've got placebo effect. Okay. Pain. Okay, so we've got pain relief over here. Touchy. Touchy subject. Healing. Healing power. Blood. Blood vessels. Bedside manner. And strong hint. Okay, so if you've got all of the answers right, well done. Absolutely well done. Okay, so these are the correct collocations. that you can find from the text. If you didn't need to locate these collocations in the text, well done if you've done it on your own. So let's see if you understand how to use these collocations in context. So what I've got here are just some example sentences that you could go through and see if you can match the right collocations to the right sentences. So again, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about this, and after 2 minutes we'll go through the answers together. Okay, good luck. Okay, let's go ahead and check your answers. Medical exams are a what with Tammy at the moment? She's just failed all of them. So, if you have put touchy subject, you are right. Okay? Give yourself 1 point out of 7. Now, the main what in the human body are the arteries and veins. Okay, if you've chosen blood vessels, again, give yourself a mark, 2 out of 7 for this. Question 3, or sentence 3, relaxing the body can bring what more quickly than analgesic drugs? Okay, the answer here would be pain relief. Okay, number 4, a good what includes respect, politeness, and listening to the patient. So the correct answer here is bedside manner. 5, although he said nothing definite, John gave a what that he's leaving medicine. Okay, nothing definite, but a strong hint or clue that he's leaving medicine. Okay, 6, many people believe in the what of light, of music, or of religious faith. Many people believe in the healing power of light. Oh, I've just realized that the word off is missing here. So let me just include the word off. I'm not really a very good typist, but yes. Believe in the healing power of light, music, or of religious faith. And, of course, clinical trials are used to detect whether a treatment is a placebo effect or or an effective cure. Okay, so did you get 7 out of 7? If you have, well done you. Good job. Okay, so I hope you're clear with collocations for today. And before I close this lesson, it is quite a good idea for you to try and do a bit more reading about medicine, particularly on the topic that we have just discussed, because if you don't already know, the IELTS test is a topics-based test. So not only will it come out in an IELTS reading passage, but the same topic might come out in an IELTS speaking Part 3 interview. So let's take a look at some of these example questions that you may be asked. So what are you going to do if your examiner asks you this question? What other examples of placebo can you think of? If the topic is about medicine in Part 2, you might not be asked something specific like placebo effect, but if you know something about placebo effect, and if you raise this in your interview, if you throw this knowledge out to your examiner correctly, in the correct grammatical structures and all of that, you might end up, impressing the examiner and, persuade them to give you a higher score for vocabulary for this. So, what other examples of placebo can you think of? Are there any other ways in which our state of mind can influence our physiology? So this is something that you can think about. Okay, you can talk about how states of mind may affect our physiology in many ways. For example, stress may cause high blood pressure, or excitement or concentration may allow distraction from pain, for instance. So if you can come up with more examples, that would be good for you in your interview. And what do you know about alternative medicines in your country? So what are you going to say if your examiner asks you which kinds of alternative medicine are popular in your country? In your opinion, which work and which don't? So again, you can talk about your opinion, and you can back your opinion up with some of the examples or facts that we have already gathered here in our IELTS reading lesson. You can use some of the vocabulary that we've looked at, and you can use this to add to your bank of information about the placebo effect or alternative medicine compared to conventional medicine. And then finally, do you think alternative medicine could be integrated with conventional medicine in your country? So think about this. Why would it work and why would it not work? Can you think of any examples? And again, if you are stuck for ideas or vocabulary, you can look back at the passage and see what you can say about integrating alternative medicine into conventional medicine. And you can use these examples to back your opinion. And so, but what I would not suggest is for you to memorize information or statements word for word. Okay, so you can use that information that we've just looked at to your advantage, not just in IELTS reading, but also in IELTS writing or speaking. You may be asked to write about this in IELTS writing task 2 as well, so you never know. Okay, so I hope you have found today's lesson very helpful. And I think perhaps in the next lesson I'll do a continuation of IELTS writing task 1, because if I remember correctly, we actually didn't finish writing task 1, or is it task 2? Let me have a look at that and come back to you. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. You can always place your kind comments in the comments box, either on Facebook, or write me a note, or visit my website here if you're interested in knowing more. So, have a good rest of the week ahead, and all the best in your test if you're sitting for one soon. Okay, take care. Bye-bye for now.